Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of City Club, I welcome you here. It's our second candidate forum. My name is Jim Britton, and I'm the current president of the City Club. The mission of City Club is to inform, connect, and engage our community to strengthen the civic health of our region. We emphasize civil conversations and listening to others. We begin by acknowledging with humility that the land where we are today is the territory of the people of the Salish Sea. Their presence is imbued in the waterways, shorelines, mountains of the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish people. And it has been that way since time immemorial. As always, I'd like to thank our volunteers who made this program possible. And I'd like to also thank those who have our corporate sponsors, and they are Peace Health, St. Joseph's Medical Center, Bruce and Claudia Descend, Danny Neal, real estate broker of the Moyoc Group, Firehouse Arts and Events Center, Colshan's CPA, Opportunity Council, Pacific Continental Realty, Unity Care Northwest, Village Books, Western Washington University, Whatcom Community College, and the Salish Current. And a big thanks also for our caterer. Let's acknowledge those people. I'd like to particularly thank those of you who accepted our invitation last time to become a volunteer and help us putting on these programs. And would you please give those people a hand? We could use a few more volunteers, so if you're interested, there's a form you could fill out at either of the back tables when you're leaving, and we would appreciate if you're interested helping us out. I'd also like to encourage those of you who are visiting and aren't members to consider becoming a member. By doing so, you're going to be offering really important financial support and other support for us to continue to do these programs. And you get a slight break, and that is that you get $5 off when you attend off the meal. And the dues are $40 for one person, $70 for a household of two, and $10 if you're under 25. And there are forms at each table that you could fill out. If you fill it out, you can leave it there, and we'll contact you about collecting your dues, or if you'd like to go ahead and just pay, our treasurer's here at the back table, and he'd be happy to take care of that. Or you could go online and just take care of it that way. Our next meeting, it will be a forum on the statewide ballot measures, which has generated obviously a lot of interest. And because the ballots drop in mid-October, we're going to be meeting 1 week earlier than we normally meet. So if you're marking your calendar or make a mental note, please, we're going to be meeting on October 16 rather than the fourth Wednesday of October, which we normally would be. And also in November, because of Thanksgiving, we will be meeting in the third Wednesday also. Okay, so now, if you have not yet done so, please make sure you've silenced your phones. And I'd like to introduce our moderator for today's forum, Jane Bright, who is also our extraordinary chair of the Programs Committee.
Thank you, Jim. I'm blushing. I'd also like to extend my welcome to everyone today, especially given the weather. We weren't sure who's going to join us. Today, what seems to be our custom of late, we have a wrinkle, which test some of our rules, but we have process and procedure for all of these kinds of things. A couple things that we do differently since from organizations, and that is one, if a candidate does not respond, as is the case in one of our races today, we still hold the debate with the candidate who is willing to show up, and we tell the non-respondent ahead of time what the process will be. There will be an empty chair and a tent card, so you know that somebody has been invited but either declined or did not respond. The other rule we have today, which is unfortunate that we have to impose, is we have a candidate who is ill and cannot be with us. And the way we handle it in that case is we give a surrogate the opportunity to speak on the candidate's behalf for 2 minutes, but they do not participate in the forum back and forth. So those are our rules. And today we do three races: the 40th Senate race, the 42nd House Position 2, and the Public Utility District 1, which is to fill an unexpired term. And we're going to go in the opposite order. Start with the PUD, and the way this will work is the first 2 questions, people will have 1 minute to respond. After that, they will have 2 minutes. And what candidates will see is they will get a warning when there is 15 seconds left, and then they will get the stop sign. And our 2 timers today, because it takes 2 people to do this, are Jane Freudenberger and Amy Nelson, who are also members of the program committee. And then another thing that's different about these forums is that, unlike our other programs during the year, we do not take questions from the floor. So we invite questions to be submitted in writing, which the program committee considers, and the program committee works to come up with questions that we think would be informative for all of you. So that's the process today. So we have the wrinkle with the PUD position, which we're going to start with first. It's one of those less obvious races in terms of what people do, so we wanted to start with that one. And Jeremiah Goggins, one of our candidates, is ill, and his father is here today to take 2 minutes to speak on his behalf, and the other candidate is Eddie Uri. So I'd ask Eddie and Dad, Matthew Goggins, to come on up. And ask you to please pay attention to these mics. You have to use your best loud voice with these mics, and let's make sure they're on for starters.
Testing. That better?
Yeah, okay. And I think, and you're obviously welcome to sit. Since Mr. Goggins will be leaving us shortly, why don't you go ahead and start, and then you can. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to the City Club for sponsoring forums like this. It's very important. And Jeremiah apologizes for not showing up. I'm tempted to just go into what the PUD does, because Jeremiah, he's been talking to people all over the county, like hundreds of people, to explain what his vision is for the PUD. But he actually spends a lot of time just explaining what the PUD is, because a lot of people don't know. I've never really heard about it. But the PUD is responsible for supplying water and electricity to Cherry Point. They play an important role in the watershed, because they actually have about half the water rights in the county, which is a very important situation in terms of the adjudication process. And also they're a key player actually in expanding broadband internet in the county. And that's one of Jeremiah's top concerns, is making sure that's done well. Like initially, the PUD's first foray into broadband didn't go very well. They had an $11 million grant. They ended up spending it all without actually installing a single line of service. They got sued by the SEC for actually, technically it was fraud, but basically for mismanaging the grant. But but the PUD has been doing pretty well lately. So Jeremiah wants to continue the work they've been doing with broadband. His main vision for the PUD is to make sure everything that they do is sustainable, takes into account everybody in the community, all the stakeholders, not just the people with the loudest voices. He, as a young person himself, he's considerably younger even than Eddie, he's concerned that families in Whatcom County can afford to live here, can afford to have housing, and the PUD does actually have a role in that, and he's committed to making sure that the PUD works for that. Thank you.
Thank you, and please extend our good wishes to Jeremiah.
I will. Thanks.
Okay. Candidate Uri, could you please take 1 minute to introduce yourself?
Well, hello everybody. Good to see you all, to those I know and those I hope to meet. And thanks to the City Club, of course, for hosting this the space for civic engagement and community enrichment. It's really important. Jane, Jim, everybody, and also thank you for the. Although, as they say, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Happy to entertain you today. My name is Eddie Uri. I'm running for PUD Commission, and this is just for to fill the remainder of a term vacated by Christine Grant. Unfortunately, left us, and like Jeremiah, I stepped up with short notice. I have been following issues. 15 seconds. That goes by fast. I guess I'll tell more of my questions here, but I believe I'm qualified, prepared, and committed to take on the serious responsibilities of water and power providers to deliver the resources that are fundamental to our quality of life and needs of all. So thank you.
Okay. It's sometimes easier if you hold the mic forward at an angle.
Angle. That's better. Okay.
Okay.
Do I have two? You said, was that 1 minute or was that?
That was 1 minute.
Oh, okay. I thought you said 2 minutes.
Okay, 1 minute for the intro and
that was it. Okay.
1 minute for this one, which is what distinguishes you from your opponent.
What distinguishes me from my opponent? So, while I can't, I don't want to make any assumptions about Jeremiah and what he stands for, but one thing I can just say is, my experience being engaged in this community for over a decade, working locally through advocacy toward preventing pollution in the Salish Sea, and toward advancing action on climate change, and towards a sustainable, reliable, affordable energy future. I'll say, just speak to I can speak to my values. As I was saying, I do understand the serious importance and the complex challenges that comes with the issues of maintaining and delivering the services that are foundational to our economy. I can say that I value and respect the rights of indigenous peoples and sovereignty of tribal nations and the inherent value of the ecosystems that in their own right and in our reliance on them as all human beings and continuing to live here, and it's important to sustain those things. God, it goes by fast, doesn't it?
Well, you get 2 whole minutes for the next one.
Okay.
Okay. The PUD provides can you hear me, everybody? Okay. The PUD provides industrial grade water to 10 industrial accounts and 50 plus irrigation systems. The electricity utility provides power to, and has 1 customer, as well as PUD's 2 water intake operations. Given the few customers that PUD services directly, why is what the PUD does important to all of Whatcom County?
Well, you're right. I'm only serving 50 customers, so it's far less than some other utilities you may be familiar with. These are the farms that are growing food, and the industries that are undeniably major for providing the fuel that everyone in the region is consuming on a daily basis. The PUD was established by citizen initiative in 1930 as part of a movement of the Granges and farmers coming together to create farming cooperatives, electric cooperatives, the public utility movement, all of this towards the idea that there are water and energy and all of these things. These are public interests. They're actually human right. They're a baseline need. And not just for, of course, our personal use, but yes, for commercial, agricultural, industrial use, all of these things that keep society going. The PUD is vital in that. They play a very important role, and especially in the context of climate change, being able to foresee and predict even, greater challenges. Of course, we're already seeing them around just water quantity and availability, in the time that we need it in the summer, especially. The PUD being a major water right holder, and also the PUD being, one of the few organizations around that really has the ability to, secure bonding and funding independently, doesn't have to raise taxes or anything in order to build infrastructure that we need that could actually create local autonomy, improve reliability and resiliency for the sustainable energy future. The PUD can play a major role in that. I hope to see them expanding. Also, of course, in the last few years, the PUD's expansion into providing open access broadband internet service to customers who really need, or folks that really need that connection. And that's something that I hope to continue expanding as well if I'm elected to serve.
Thank you. And all the next questions are 2 minutes. So. Describe your view of the potential opportunity presented by geothermal energy and your level of commitment, if any, pursuing this resource for Whatcom County.
Yeah, there's really major opportunities here. This is, a serious live project that the PUD has started pursuing, that'll be coming in. And, I see like a role in continuing to engage in the community around this, because this is something everyone's just learning about. It's exciting. I mean, this is an opportunity to create, establish baseload power that can substitute, natural gas-fired power plants, potentially, dams that are going to be removed, or other proposals like nuclear. This could be major and provide enough power to meet local needs. We don't know that yet. There has to be studies. There has to be drilling. I have a lot of there's some new technology here, and of course a lot of environmental concerns when it comes to drilling near Baker Lake and Mount Baker. But do trust that with a robust environmental review process, public participation. Key to this is the partnership and commitment of the Nooksack tribe in this project from beginning to end. I think that I'm hopeful, although still will need, of course, assurance that this is a safe and worthwhile proposal to pursue as that more information comes to light. But overall, I think this is our big step for moving toward delivering power to one single customer, the Ferndale refinery, to actually being a bigger player in the electric utility space. And I'm excited about that and other opportunities that may be before us.
This is from the PUD mission statement. The PUD is involved in local and regional environmental matters, as well as utility issues, quote, to better serve, unquote, everyone in Whatcom County. What specifically would you do to better serve Whatcom County?
To better serve Whatcom County. My 2 years on the commission, I can't promise great sweeping change and transformation here, but this is just a pivotal time to be working in utilities in a changing world, a changing industry, and there's a lot of opportunity here. So I think a key thing here is trying to not miss those opportunities. Right, there's so much before us now, unprecedented in federal and state funding that's become available through infrastructure grants and programs that the PUD can access if we're ready for it. We have to be investing in staff, creating jobs, investing in the community here. And I think anything that we would look to do, right, should be, of course, toward the aim of try to deliver the best deal, deliver the most affordable and reliable service possible, right? This is not for profit. This is for the public good. And serving our customers, it also means, there's honestly, there is tensions between, short-term needs and demands, and then, long-term sustainability for those same customers. Those are really complex challenges and issues to face. It's not something where I would say like taking a rigid position on is the way to go. it's really a matter of like we all need to be collaborative, cooperative, adaptive, and learning from each other in this, because it's a challenge in order to meet the needs of those who are using the most water, right? Industries and farms in Whatcom County, and to maintain in-stream flows, to maintain salmon habitat, and just not having enough water to meet rural residents for everyone's needs, right? These are huge challenges that I don't take lightly. So to best serve, I want to be receptive and adaptive and to all stakeholders and interests, and prioritize the needs of our customers. So.
Okay, thank you. What policies would you support for agriculture, industry, and the community to reduce water usage? What opportunities, if any, would you support to create a reservoir or other infrastructure to ensure adequate water for the future?
Well, I could list off an alphabet soup of all of the organizations and agencies and programs that are engaged in supporting water efficiency and conservation in Whatcom County, in our watershed inventory area. And I understand, there's funding, there's great practices for farms to be more efficient with their operations. There are no real limits in place, not to the extent that we're used to, right? As if we're in a water association or a municipality, right? When it comes to our water use with agricultural water rights holders and many of the PD customers. One thing that often gets brought up, I agree with, is we need to revisit state water law, of course, like the relinquishment law, so the use it or lose it, that really disincentivizes efficiency or conservation. That's probably not helping. There's a lot we can support there. I think we just have to recognize that it's not just the water we need now, it's the water we're going to need in the future with changing patterns, where we may have, we're going to have look at more droughts, reduced in-stream flows. Most of the water as it is now is being consumed by farms when the flows are low in the summers from the ground, right? So aquifer recharge is key here. Floodplain management to allow natural recharge. So when there are those floods and big dumps of rain in the fall and winter, that's going into the ground, because the ground is our water storage. There's really no way that we could store enough water on the surface by creating new lakes, which is really not a simple thing. I mean, that's creating, damming rivers and creating large new lakes is not going to guarantee our water supply for the future. It's something to explore, but aquifer recharge and, we really need to be looking at this holistically. But it's something I'm certainly open to persuasion and education on still.
Part of the PUD mission is to protect stream flow and salmon habitat. What policies do you support to accomplish this mission?
You said habitat and
protect stream flow and salmon habitat.
Stream flow and salmon habitat. As I was saying, it relates to around floodplain management, right? So restoring natural functions of rivers, repairing ecosystems in the nearshore areas. That's key to this, right? You got to look at not just quantity of water; it's the timing, it's the temperature. There's of course pollution issues impacting salmon habitat. Thankfully, the PUD is able to fund program and works, through like Nooksack Salmon Enhancement Association can get grants from PUD, work with Whatcom Conservation District and various local and state entities, right? As far as when it comes to preserving habitat, I mean, we have to, when it comes down to it, right, the bottom line is one way or the other, there needs to be enough water left in the river for the salmon to complete their life cycle. That's imperative. That's not only an inherent good, it's the law, it's treaty rights, it's supreme law. It is the right of the tribes to have, to continue that salmon habitat and life cycle for, as an economic foundation and a way of life. And for non-tribal folks too, a very important part of our Northwest culture. So it's, that's a key. I mean, as far as specific policies, programs, I don't know if I could really cover it on to cover the depths of those in 2 minutes. But let's see. I do have time left, huh? Yeah, I guess I'm something I want to work with stakeholders on for sure.
What specific strategies in Whatcom County Climate Plan would you pursue to improve Whatcom County's response to effects from climate change and to strengthen climate resiliency?
Yeah, I serve on the Whatcom County Climate Impact Advisory Committee, and we're in a process of adapting our 2021 Climate Action Plan into the county's comprehensive plan, and I'm really proud of that document. It serves as an informational and guiding resource for the local government and for everyone in the county, and there's so many steps to take, right, and so many things in the works. I did mention earlier how we manage development around streams and near streams, conservation easements, right? By limiting where, like if we're allowing uses and building in the floodplains, that can actually lead to the destruction of uses and facilities in other parts of the river, right? We have to be following best available science and working with what we got, right? With the function of the river to be able to, it's going to flood. It's going to be flooding in the fall. We're looking at a future of massive flooding and then severe drought in the summer. That's the pattern. That's going to get worse, and this is in the coming decades that I plan to live through, and it's now. So. So in the adaptation side, as far as what the PUD can also be doing, right, is also through the distribution of energy resources. It would build resiliency as far as resilience to extreme weather events, storms, wildfires, all of that, and promoting conservation efficiency. We're looking at the climate action plan. Of course, we also have written in there in the industrial section about new energy alternatives like green hydrogen, which are coming, and that the PUD is going to be making decisions about supplying water and power for soon. So all of those things. There's I'd say that it's like it or not, whatever we're going to do about it. I'd also say that our climate policies should be beneficial regardless of what's happening.
Stop signs up there. Sorry. And your last question. What specific strategies do you support to ensure that everyone in our community has equitable and affordable access to high-speed internet?
Well, this is really exciting as the PUD's stepped out and begun. They've been working on a project in Point Roberts. There's a few others in the works. We have a broadband plan at the PUD and some really capable staff person. Work dedicated entirely to that project, and our fellow commissioners and general manager doing great work on that. So I just want to be stepping in to support and continue that work. It's going and seeking more funding and for that. I know there's just so many folks, still businesses and residents in the county that are underserved, and in this day and age, it's clear that internet is an essential public utility. I think we saw that all the more during pandemic, where if people rely on this for they're making a living, to be able to attend school. All of that, right? Or, just as well as connecting. And it's essentially a prerequisite to participation in society today. So it's a serious inequity when folks can't get fair and affordable access to that. Of course, there's costs and challenges, for a private utility to bring that service to folks that are in, remote or more rural areas. And that's where a public utility, just like they do with water and power, can come in and provide that. And for the fiber to be open access, right? And so we actually... I think that this is not going to be owned by monopoly utilities, which influence so much of policy around internet infrastructure now. This is the idea is that folks can get the best speed at the best rate that we can possibly provide, and building that conduit and fiber. That's something we need to fund and continue prioritizing the places that are most in need. So I'm really excited about working on that.
Thank you very much. If I could have our next candidates, candidate Joe Timmons and candidate Kamal Bachu up here. I'll even swap out your names. Okay, what have I done with the mic? Oh. It's been that kind of a day. Okay. As a reminder, the first 2 questions will be 1 minute, and then after that, 2 minutes, and we're going to alternate. So if I ask candidate Bachu the first question, and then candidate Timmons answers secondly, then I will ask candidate Timmons the next one first. So we'll go back and forth. And if I mess up, please tell me. So let's start with candidate Bachu. Would you take 1 minute to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much for having me here, City Club. And my name is Kamal Bachu. If we haven't met, I was born and raised in India and moved here when I was 15. Went to Bellingham High School, started there, and graduated from Squalcombe High School. So been here for 28 years. My dad was a bricklayer by trade. He moved to Canada right after I was born for better future. And many of you know India is overly populated countries, so opportunities are very hard to come by. A few years later, he ended up in the United States, and where he was able to get his work permit, visa, and eventually saved enough money to bring us here. So, and every time I think of coming to America while I was 15, I thought of tall skyscrapers, thought of Baywatch, thought of and also Pamela Anderson came to my mind many, many times as a 15-year-old. And then I thought of Law and Order. I'm not talking about the TV show Law and Order. I'm talking about real Law and Order where police get to do their job. Okay. So, thank you.
Got the stop sign. Candidate Timmons, 1 minute, please, to introduce yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, y'all, for the opportunity to be here. It is a real pleasure to be here with the City Club. This is my first time being up here on stage before you all. I deeply believe in civic education. I used to work at Western Washington University and help put on the Monroe Institute for Civic Education seminar. So I really just value the work of this institution and appreciate the opportunity to be here. For those of you who I haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Joe Timmons. Grew up here in Washington State, currently serve as the state representative, and I'm running for re-election for my second term. I am just wrapping up my first term here. I grew up in Edmonds. My dad's a pipe fitter by trade, and my folks opened a small business out of our garage when I was 5 years old. It's a business that's still in operation today, and I'm very proud of that, and I learned the value of hard work that way. And I applied that to a career in public service. I have over nearly 15 years of work in public service, including the last 2 years as your state representative, and I'd be honored to have a second term. Thank you.
Okay. And candidate Timmons, what distinguishes you from your opponent?
Yeah, well, thank you for the opportunity to say that. I guess I'll just talk more about myself. As I said, I have nearly 15 years of experience working in the public sector. I deeply believe in public service. It's why I ran for this position and why I hope to retain this seat and continue to do the good work in Olympia on behalf of our community. I have 10 years experience working directly in state government. Before being state representative, I worked for 4 years in Governor Inslee's administration as our Northwest Washington regional representative. Previously worked at Western Washington University and lobbied on behalf of the university in Olympia to help get funding for new programs and student support services. So I think that to me is something that I'm very proud of, and I think that distinguishes me in the sense that I have experience working in Olympia. I have experience passing bills in Olympia. I have experience working with budget writers to bring resources from Olympia back here to Whatcom County, and that's something that I hope to continue to do.
Thank you. And candidate Bachu, what distinguishes you from your opponent. I'll get there, opponent.
So what distinguished me from my opponent? I would talk about myself. Like I mentioned before. Hello?
Yeah, do you hold it?
Like I mentioned before, I was born and raised in India. I moved here at age 15. So I came here with nothing. So I had to work very hard. I didn't know how to speak any English, so I learned it while I was going to school and worked 2 jobs. And during that time, my sister was diagnosed with cancer, so I had to get out and get another job. So when it's come down to hard work, I have it. And later in my life, I worked at hospice did that care for about 4.5 years. That's where I learned how to listen to people. You know, listening is very important if you are running for a local office, and that's what I had done throughout my campaign, listening to people and then working on their needs and their wants. So, and that's what I want to do if you guys elect me, to listen and do the work.
Okay, staying with candidate Bachu, the next question, and then this is 2 minutes from now on. There is universal recognition that Washington needs to increase housing stock. However, local regulations sometimes slow or even prevent construction. What state efforts, if any, would you support to speed up the process and/or to reduce costs?
That is a great question. I have four adult kids, and one of them just recently bought a house because of her husband served in the U.S. military, and they were able to use his GI Bill. And the rest of the other 3 are looking for a place to live, and that is a disgrace. In this country, people should be able to afford housing and be able to live and fulfill their dreams. And in the state of Washington, we are behind when it's come down to buildings. I have built houses after I graduated from Bellingham Tech College. I know what it takes to build a house. What regulation I would look into? The first one I would like to look into has to do with stormwater runoff plan. Recently we built a house with my brother. It costed him $15,000 to get the stormwater runoff plan done and installed. It was about $5,000 to get it engineered, and then to get it installed by a contractor. And that's $15,000 extra that's added on top of everything else. And then we also have shortage of labor, which we need to look into. So there's a lot can be done, and then some of the energy codes are also adding costs to the buildings, and there's continuous of change in building codes. We have to look into those as well. And by doing that, we could bring some of the housing costs down, and also hopefully look into some of the where we can, the zoning codes, we can look into those, and can we shrink the size of the lots, make them 0 lot lines, and build housings in those areas. So, thank you.
Okay, candidate Timmons. Again, I'll read the questions for everyone's benefit. There is universal recognition that Washington needs to increase housing stock. However, local regulations sometimes slow or even prevent construction. What state efforts, if any, would you support to speed up the process and to reduce costs?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for this question, because housing, the housing shortage crisis is something that is a priority of mine, addressing that, and something that will continue to be a priority of mine if reelected. And I want to begin by saying I agree with my opponent that I really value listening, and I think that that's where I would start. I want to talk with builders. I want to learn more about the roadblocks that they're experiencing and how we can help alleviate those. I think depending on who you talk with, some people experience more red tape than I think is necessary at county and city level governments when it comes to permitting, and I want to think about how the state can work with local jurisdictions to alleviate that. I am proud to be endorsed by the Washington Housing Alliance and also the Whatcom County Association of Realtors, because I really believe in working on housing on a holistic level, from rent for protecting tenants to helping people get into their first time owning a home. My wife Heather and I, we have a 4-year-old now. When he was 1 in 2021, our rent went up 35% here, just up the street. It was very challenging for me and my family, and when I talk with constituents, unfortunately, our experience isn't that unique. So we definitely need to build more housing. I'm proud that we passed a bill in 2023 that would increase zoning to have more duplexes and more quadplexes to make it easier to build more units, because I think ultimately we have a demand that is far exceeding supply. And I think the only way that we're going to get out of this challenge is by building more and building more units. As my opponent said, he wants his children to be able to grow up or live here. I too want my son to be able to live here when he's older, if he so chooses. But we're not going to do that unless we build more. I also don't think we're going to be able to support working families unless we also add protections for renters. As I said, our rent went up 35%. I supported a bill this last year that would have a rent stabilization, which would help people reduce the cost that they're spending on housing so that they can afford to finance hospital medical emergencies and save up for a home as well. So we have a lot of work on this issue, and I'm committed to doing that.
Okay. Thank you. And we'll stay with you, candidate Timmons. Washington State's Constitution requires a balanced budget over a 4-year period. For the next 2-year budget, a $1 billion shortfall is predicted, and for the following 2-year budget, the predicted shortfall is approximately $3 billion more. What specific strategies to reduce expenses and/or increase revenue would you champion?
Yeah, thank you for this question as well. We have our work cut out for us in Olympia, that's for sure. The budget outlook is looking bleak. We have declining revenues, and we have increased case management that we need to fund. So I'm committed to working with budget writers and fellow colleagues, I know a few of them are in the room here today, to look holistically at the budget. I think I really appreciate the way you framed the question, Jane, because you framed it in terms of revenue and also in terms of what we're spending money on. And I think we need to look at both of those things. What is the state spending money on that we no longer need to spend as much money on? And what can the state do to increase revenue to help uphold the services that Washingtonians expect from their government? I think we're going to have some really challenging issues around that, and one that I'm going to be really vocal about when we talk about revenue, if those conversations come up, is how we can do it in a way that is less regressive in terms of its impacts on Washingtonians. Some of you may know we are number 2 in the country. We're formerly number 1, but we're number 2 now in the country in terms of having the most regressive tax structure, which means that people disproportionately pay a share of their income in this state more than 48 other states in the country. So I think as we look about addressing revenue to help fund the services that Washingtonians expect and deserve, we need to be looking about ways to do that in a way that's equitable, in a way that helps working families, and that's something I'm committed to.
Okay, thank you. Would you like me to repeat the question? Okay, it's a long one. Washington State's Constitution requires a balanced budget over a 4-year period. For the next 2-year budget, a $1 billion shortfall is predicted, and for the following 2-year budget, the predicted shortfall is $3 billion more. What specific strategies do you support to reduce expenses and/or increase revenue?
What I would do, the first thing first, to balance budget, we'll have to take the same approach something I would do to balance my own budget, my house budget, and to look at strategies. Where am I spending the money? Where the money is going? Where can I cut? So a lot of those things I would look into auditing a lot of the policies and I'll look into what works and what doesn't work, and let's get rid of those. And in order to increase the revenue, Washington State is known for not a very business-friendly state. So what other regulations can be cut to attract more business to come in and do their business here, and when it's going to manufacturing or other type of businesses, can we attract those to the state of Washington by cutting some of the regulations and bringing some new business in, and that's how we're able to increase the revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, and we'll stay with you, candidate Batchy. For 2024, if you earn over $262,000 on annual capital gains, you will be taxed on the excess amount above the $262,000. Approximately 0.04% of Washington residents owed capital gains in 2023 and added $1 billion to our state finances. Do you support eliminating this tax? Why or why not?
I support eliminating this tax. Reason why is because it's a slippery slope. And now is, did you say 262? Or 262,000. It is a slippery slope. And today is 262. Tomorrow it will be 150. And then I feel like it's a slippery slope. It will leave the doors open for the future regulation to come in and bring it down even more. And today is being charged on stocks and bonds. It could be turned into income tax or other type of taxes. So I support this to do away with this capital gain tax.
Okay. Candidate Timmons, should I repeat the question?
Yes, please.
For 2024, if you were in excess of $262,000 on annual capital gains, you will be taxed on the excess amount above $262,000. Approximately 0.04% of Washington residents owed capital gains in 2023 and added $1 billion to our state finances. That's approximately $1 billion. Do you support eliminating this tax? Why or why not?
No, I do not support eliminating this tax, and I hope people will join me in voting no in this initiative. I mean, I don't know about you all. I don't know anyone paying the capital gains tax. The Cascadia Daily News reported, I think it was about 55 people in Whatcom County. In the 42nd Legislative District, I think it's right around 20 people or so. And when we talk about capital gains, let's talk about what that is. This is money that you receive based on the sale of stocks and bonds. It's not the sale of houses, and it's not the sale of retirement funds. These are extremely wealthy individuals who are paying for services that impact children around the state. And that's what I really want to focus on. The funding that we as a state receive from the capital gains tax, which is a 7% tax, I believe, goes to funding early learning programs and K-12 programs around the state. I care deeply about the education of students in Whatcom County and around the state, and I don't want to see that funding go away. We know that an investment in early learning has a tremendous return on investment. It's something like 8 or 9 to 1, depending on how you look. These is investments that help brain development, help children grow, help children get a positive education, and frankly, I don't want to see that go away. And in light of the question we just had about the budget challenges we have in the near future, this will have a tremendous impact and will jeopardize other services that folks across the state depend on. So please join me in voting no.
And candidate Timmons, we'll stick with you for this one. Jumping ahead. Washington ranks very low on access to mental health professionals, support staff, and treatment beds. What specific strategies will you champion to address these issues to keep our schools, communities, and residents healthy and safe? And how would you pay for them?
This is such an important question because we have such challenges when it comes to mental and behavioral health in our communities, including dealing with the fentanyl epidemic. I want to continue the work that I've already done. In the 2 years that I've been in the legislature, I've worked with colleagues and budget writers, some folks in this room from the 40th Legislative District, in addition to Senator Shoemake and Representative Rule. We helped get funding for a 23-hour crisis center here in Bellingham that's going to help people experiencing mental health crisis. We also got funding for a new skill center at Meridian High School. This is going to help folks learn hands-on learning, and some of that is going to be to become folks who can go join our workforce and help people dealing with crisis. We also passed a bill this last year that adds to a state compact, in joining other states in if you are certified as a mental health counselor in some states, then you can come to our state and work because we have such a shortage. So when I think about our mental and behavioral health crisis, to me it's twofold. I think we need to, one, build more. We need to build more beds. As I said, we are helping to do that, and we have more work to do on that front. And we also need to really work on our workforce. We need to help train the next generation of workforce to go into mental and behavioral health counseling. I had a bill, House Bill 1823, I believe, that creates a low interest rate student loan program for graduate studies. I went to graduate school at University of Washington. My wife Heather did as well, her for public health. And we're still paying off our student loan debts. I don't want people to have the same experience if they want to receive a higher education And this bill is specifically targeted for high demand fields and workforce shortages. And part of that is for mental and behavioral health counseling. Lastly, I'll just mention, I think we need to be doing more work upstream. I have a bill around social emotional instruction that passed out of the House, didn't make it out of the Senate, to help teach empathy and reduce bullying and increasing academic engagement. While I support these investments now, we need to work upstream to prevent trauma in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Baju, the question is, Washington ranks very low on access to mental health professionals, support staff, and treatment beds. What specific strategies will you champion to address these issues to keep our schools, communities, and residents healthy and safe? And how would you pay for them?
So the first thing first, I work at Peace Health, so I get to talk to lots of nurses and a lot of the caretakers. The number one challenge they're facing right now, there's an increase in the patient load. Increasing the patient load is not only stressful for the patient themselves because sometimes they're unable to receive the adequate care, but it's also increase on nurses, doctors, and all the caretakers that take care of them every day. Like I said before, I worked in hospice, and I know what it's like to go through when you have an extra load or extra patient that you have to take care of. Guys, it's very demanding, not only physically, but also mentally. My opponent mentioned about they're championing about things that has to do with fentanyl. But Democrats have completely dropped the ball when it's come down to protecting our community from fentanyl. And I don't think that's helping. So when it's come down to how are we going to increase the caretakers or the mental health counselors, we need to attract people to go in those fields, provide scholarships, or if there has to do with low interest student loans, that would also help. But also, we have to increase the staffing into hospitals and other clinics that will provide the care that people need. So thank you.
Thank you. And we will stick with you for the next question. What specific changes would you support for abortion care in Washington? 1, for state residents, and 2, for non-residents. Yes.
So, can you repeat that question one more time, please?
What specific changes would you support for abortion care in Washington state for 1, state residents, Washington state residents, and for non-residents?
Are we talking about specific abortion rights, or were we talking?
Abortion.
Abortion. So when it's come down to abortion rights, Washington state people have spoken in the state of Washington that they want to have their abortion rights safe. And as a Sikh man, I am taught to respect all life. So it is my job to respect every life, and also to make sure the abortion right is safe in the state of Washington as a lawmaker, because people have spoken. They wanted to keep this right safe, and as a lawmaker, it is my job to keep it safe. And another big concern that I do have, that in Whatcom County, there are women that don't even have primary care physician. So my goal would be to make sure that those people have adequate health education so they could make educated decision about their health. And also increase the resources when it's come down to their personal health and when it's come down to education regarding their choices and their bodies. And that's what I would like to do. Thank you.
And candidate Timmons? Same question. What specific changes would you support for abortion care in Washington State for Washington State residents and for non-residents?
Yeah, thank you for this question. You know, when I go doorbelling throughout Whatcom County, this is one of the issues I hear most. It's definitely on people's mind. In absence of federal safeguards, we as a state need to stand up and need to have protections for folks in our state and for Washingtonian residents and people who come here. I deeply, deeply believe in that, and I'm proud to have the endorsement of Planned Parenthood of Greater Washington and Northern Idaho. You know, I've heard this before, that the voters have spoken about this issue, but the reality is every year in the legislature, there are bills that would limit or restrict a woman's access to reproductive health care. And I think it's really important that voters know where candidates stand on this issue. I am very proud of my voting record to stand up to protect access to reproductive health care, including access to abortions. One bill in particular that I'm really proud that we passed came from Representative Vonda Slaughter. I believe it's House Bill 1155, My Health, My Data. And what that is it protects patients' health data, and it also protects professionals providing reproductive health care. Because if we allow folks who are providing these level of services to be punished down the road, then these services will go away. So this is an issue that I really believe in. I believe this is a very personal decision between a patient and their doctor, and I will continue to stand and vote for that if reelected.
Thank you. And candidate Timmons, the next one is yours as well. Washington State is not on track to meet our climate goals. What specific actions and funding, if any, do you support to increase resiliency and reduce our carbon footprint?
Well, first and foremost, I hope that the voters will reject the initiative that would do away with the Climate Commitment Act. The Climate Commitment Act is on the ballot. I'm proud to live in a state that is taking a step to try to do something about the climate change crisis, which not only impacts residents in our community and state, but of course around the planet. And I want to continue to do that. I want to continue to be a leader in this state, and hopefully the country, other states will follow suit and continue to do things so we can work together to address this issue. You know, I think part of that question, Jane, that really sticks with me is resilience. You know, we have increasing natural disasters. We have increasing weather events as a result of climate change. We know that these come with more frequency and they come with more severity now. I just know the flooding in recent years in East Whatcom County, and I've taken it upon myself in my first term to really prioritize funding and work to have more resiliency in natural disaster environments. One way I did that was by passing a bill that creates a state emergency medical reserve corps. This is a network of volunteers, doctors, and nurses, and mental health counselors that can come into communities across state lines after experiencing these extreme weather events. And also a bill that creates a public infrastructure assistance program. If we don't meet the threshold to qualify for FEMA assistance to rebuild sidewalks and libraries, I believe that the state should step in for Everson and for Sumas and other communities that are experiencing that. So I guess what I would say is I think we have more work to do to address the climate crisis. I think it starts with this November in defending the Climate Commitment Act on the ballot. Because the funding from the Climate Commitment Act helps fund important things around our state. It funds the Ride Free program for people 18 and under to ride Amtrak, Washington State ferries, and transit. It helps fund electric school buses and charging stations. So that's first and foremost on top of my mind. Thank you.
Thank you. And candidate Patu, the state is not on track to meet our climate goals. What specific actions and funding, if any, do you support to increase resiliency and reduce our carbon footprint?
The first thing first, that we all had to be a good steward of the environment. And that is our duty, because we want to keep not only our state, but this world safe for everyone when it's come down to climate. The thing I would like to talk about, the Initiative 2117, that it has done nothing to curb the carbon footprint. Matter of fact, it has added 50 cents per gallon when it's come down to gas, and it has increased the energy cost by 40%. But there's another thing I would like to talk about when it's come down to climate, that that I drive by these homeless encampment every day, and they're literally spilling out onto the streets. I see shopping carts, I see trash everywhere, and there are people in those encampments using drugs and needles. And that water, and it's not good for the groundwater because all of those things it is toxic waste that is going to end up in our water streams. And so we have to look at everything that we do throughout our lives. So I think we have to look at those encampments. Can we clean those up? And when it comes to cleaning those encampments, they will cost millions of dollars to the taxpayer of Whatcom County. So we have to look into things that are around us. And another thing I would do, work on the infrastructure when it comes down to electric cars, make sure we have all of that in place in the state of Washington. And also look at retrofitting some of the buildings with better lighting and to decrease some of the electric consumption. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll stay with you for the next one. What is your philosophy about the role of compromise in governance, and what, if any, red lines do you have on issues where you do not believe there is room for compromise?
I believe we compromise every day with each other, whether it's a husband or wife, father and kids. There's compromise. I think that's what human nature is. When we're working with each other, there's going to be disagreements, and there are disagreements at every level of government. You have to find out what you're working on and how something that you're compromising, how is going to benefit your constituents. Because at the end of the day, you are being a representative. They're representing their constituents, their needs and their wants. And there are a lot of times you have to put your personal beliefs and agendas to the side in order to serve the people you're representing. So that's what I would do.
Okay. Thank you. And Candidate Timmons, what is your philosophy about the role of compromise in governance, and what, if any, red lines do you have on issues where you believe there is no room for compromise?
Yeah, I think, I really believe in working across the aisle, and I believe in bipartisanship. I sponsored 14 bills in my first term, and the majority of those had Republican co-sponsors. I'm proud to live in a purple district, in a purple county. People in Whatcom County have a diversity of views and a diversity of opinions on things, and as their state representative, I try to work across the aisle and within my own party to try to represent and stand up for those folks. So I think I really take it on a case-by-case basis, Jane. If I'm being honest, I think it depends on the specifics of legislation and knowing what your community believes in, what you believe in as yourself, and not compromising on your values. If reelected, I'll continue to work with folks within my own party and with folks across the aisle, because I think the worst thing that we can do as Democrats or Republicans is not talk to one another. And so I'm committed to doing that if reelected.
Okay, and our final question, Candidate Timmons, we'll start with you on this one. Crimes against property, persons, and violent crime went down in 2023 versus 2022, according to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. However, crimes against society, such as animals cruelty and drug violations, increased 22.4%. What specific changes would you make to address this increase?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, we need to understand why people are committing those crimes. What is going on in their lives that leads them to acting out against animals or people. I am proud to have the endorsement of the Washington State Troopers Association and the Fraternal Order of Police. I believe that public safety is something that our people should be demanding of our government. And as long as I'm elected, I will try to do everything I can to make sure that people feel safe, because everyone feels safe, or everyone deserves to feel safe in our community. So I think I'd like to learn more about specifically what is the impetus behind some of these activities. I do appreciate the recognition that Some aspects of crime have gone down in the last year. And let's also recognize that this is a national challenge. We saw public safety concerns and crime waves increase after the pandemic. This is not just a Washington State challenge. This is a challenge that other states are dealing with across the country. And as I said, I'm proud to have the endorsement of some law enforcement organizations. I'm committed to working with law enforcement and committed to working with other folks to help address this issue if reelected.
Okay. Thank you both. We really appreciate you coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Take two. Crimes against property, persons in violent crime went down in 2023 versus 2022, according to the Washington Association of Sheriffs and Police Chiefs. However, crimes against society, such as animal cruelty and drug violations, increased 22.4%. What specific changes would you make to address this increase?
So first thing first, I'm also very proud to have endorsement of WACOPS, which is Police and Sheriff of Washington State. So I have done several ride-alongs with local law enforcement agencies. And what I learned about some of the statistics is some of the crimes people purely stop reporting for whatever reason, because there was a delay in police response. People have stopped reporting some of the crimes. There's another thing that we have to do is to make sure that our law enforcement officers are respected at the legislator level. And there are other things I've experienced that police officers don't feel like they're supported by their local legislators. And I would love to know that why. So we have to do better in those areas. And of course, it would help to know why people commit certain type of crimes. And if police officers are out there enforcing the law and we have an adequate jail to take the guys who are committing crimes, and that they know if they commit crime, there's a consequences. Right now, there is no consequences. People are out doing whatever they want. This one of the police officers was telling me locally that last time when he was on duty, he arrested somebody, and then the guy was able to recite RCW and saying, hey, dude, it's all right if you arrested me, but I'll be out the next day. So we have to work on those things. And again, we have to make sure that our law enforcement officers are respected at the legislator level. So not just word, some actions also.
Now, thank you both very much for your participation. Thank you. Thanks for taking the time today. Thank you, Joe. Okay. Senator? Allison? Where's Allison? No, I know you're here, and just I thought we had a card for your. Okay, never mind. Oh, here it is. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. As I mentioned at the opening, we do have our rules in the City Club that if someone declines to show up, we'd have a tent card and an empty chair to signify that they refuse to engage. So this is for the 40th. Am I right? Mm-hmm. Thank you. The 40th Senate and Senator, I'm going to call you candidate for them. Yes. Excuse me?
People are still talking and I can't hear you.
Thank you, Allison. Were you ever a teacher? Okay. We've been reprimanded accordingly. All right, let's get started. This is our last race today, and as I mentioned at the outset, this is how we do things, which is different than some of the other groups. Senator Lovelight's opponent never acknowledged anything, so just so you know. So we will get through our questions, and I'd like you to take 1 minute to introduce yourself and then 1 minute to say why you're different from your opponent, please.
All right, sounds good. Hello, Bellingham. Liz Lovelet here. I am your current state senator for the 40th Legislative District. I served for 5 years on the Anacortes City Council before I was appointed to the legislature, and believe it or not, I just completed my 6th session. So currently, I am the chair of Local Government, Land Use, and Tribal Affairs. I'm the vice chair of Energy, Environment, and Technology, and I serve on the Transportation Committee where I champion ferry issues on behalf of our state. I'm also the mom of 2 teenagers. I was just telling folks earlier, my kids are now a freshman and a senior. I have people come up and ask, like, how are your little kids doing? Well, they are not so little anymore. And they are helping me understand what it's like to be a modern teenager and how the downstream impacts of our policies, specifically around education and public safety and climate change, are impacting their lives and their future. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up. I see I got my 15-second marker, and I know I got lots of questions to answer.
Okay. Did you cover?
We just did the first minute, so now
Okay.
I'll take part 2, which is
Yes.
what distinguishes me from my opponent, and I'm just going to stand over here. You're looking at it, and I mean, yeah, I've been here, I show up, I try to make sure that my office is accessible and approachable. We really prioritize constituent casework and ensuring that people feel like they have a speedy door into their government when they have concerns around state agencies or what's going on in the public that impacts them. I listen to lead, so I really pride myself on getting out into the community and working with diverse organizations and grassroots activists. We are really lucky in the 40th District that we have such an incredible community of retired scientists and educators and public servants that are really there on the ground helping elevate their concerns to us so that we can impact change positively. I see we've got a Bellingham City Council member in the house. We also try to liaison really closely with our local electeds to elevate those concerns that are coming up at the local level, where the state really has the opportunity to have interplay and improve people's lives.
Thank you. Okay, first question. What would you do around mental health issues to increase our professionals, our treatment beds, and access, and keep our communities safe and healthy? And how would you pay for any changes?
Yes, so we are very fortunate. Speaking of that connection between our local electeds, our state and our federal counterparts, we have really been leaning in, and in particular, a shout out to our tribal partners on delivering the facilities that are necessary to provide these resources in the community. So for example, we've already cited the 23-hour support clinic. In Skagit County, we're working on the North Star Initiative, which is a coalition of all of our local cities in Skagit County coming together to provide a campus for people that are in recovery. Additionally, many of you may be familiar with the Dgualich Wellness Center that's just outside of Anacortes. This is an incredible community asset that is being provided by the Swinomish Nation in partnership with Skagit County and others in terms of getting the capital. Most of the time, when you have a project that is of great community significance, and I think the Lummi Center is another example of one where they are bringing community partners together, showing that the community is coalescing around a shared goal of providing these types of facilities and resources is how we get it done. We have a capital budget in the legislature that is really prioritizing investing in these types of facilities, investing in the workforce that's going to be necessary. Like many things that we deal with in state government, we didn't get here overnight, and it's going to take more than overnight to get back out of it. And right now, I think we have been laser focused on the facilities, the workforce, and I think especially for folks in rural areas, the very nature of accessing that care. I mean, one of the ways that Dgualich has been incredibly successful is that they actually run a shuttle, because what they found was that people were not coming to their treatment if left to their own devices to have to get there. So these are the kinds of outside the box thinking that really brings community together, that provides the holistic wraparound services that are going to be necessary for people who are experiencing behavioral health crises and substance abuse issues. And it's a community coming together that's going to make it happen with the help and support of our state budgets.
Thank you. We know Washington needs more housing.
I'm so excited for this question.
Okay. However, local regulations and sometimes slow or even prevent construction. What state efforts, if any, would you support to speed up the process or to reduce costs, or reduce costs?
Yes, so Chair of Local Government, Land Use and Tribal Affairs, that pretty much sums up the policy portfolio of where we've been working on the partnership between the state and the local governments to be able to deliver housing diversity to our communities. So right now, I like that we had the mention of the comprehensive plan update. So I was the Senate champion for a bill that embeds climate resiliency into our comp plan and also helped run the policies that have legalized a lot of different multifamily housing to be in our local jurisdictions at the community level. So things like multifamily up to 6 plexes, otherwise known as middle housing, like ADUs and streamlining the processes for that. Now, because the local governments are in their comp plan process, they are doing this massive body of work right now, this community visioning piece, this very technical work with Department of Commerce to make sure that their comprehensive plans are in line with the expectations of state law, including planning for substance abuse shelters, planning for where they're going to site permanent supportive housing. These are the types of forward-thinking, visionary, community-based processes that are going to get us there, and then the state needs to come in and figure out what's left to continue doing. We know that we have work to do around the subdivision process and making sure that it's easier for people to subdivide parcels to make smaller, more affordable home ownership opportunities. We know that developers are consistently coming back and saying that there are issues with different regulations that make it harder and more expensive to do housing. I challenge them to come to me with some specifics because I have now been in this role for years, and what I generally hear is all regulations, and when you say yes, but which ones, they're very light on the details fairly often, and the first thing to be cited is usually critical areas or energy codes. We can't look back on the types of housing that we are doing. I did service work in West Virginia where we put up clapboard houses for people to work in the coal mines, and guess what? They never got out of them, and now they're living in squalor, in huts in the mountains. We can't move in that direction. We need the energy efficiency and the environmental stewardship.
Okay. Speaking of which, let's talk about Washington's climate goals, which we are missing. What would you do to increase resiliency and reduce our carbon footprint?
Yes, we first have to defeat Initiative 2117. We can't turn the page on climate change without putting deliberate, economy-wide efforts into reducing our carbon pollution. This whole notion that the Climate Commitment Act hasn't done anything is just patently false. We are seeing investments roll out across Washington state that are reducing emissions, that are increasing access to transit, and that are ensuring we are meeting our resiliency goals at the local level. You know, we had it cited earlier that it's increasing gas costs by 50 cents. Well, the gas companies came to the legislature, they said the auction came in at $50 a metric ton, so therefore 50 cents at the gallon. Well, guess what the last auction came in at? 26 cents, $26, which means you should have gotten a quarter off on your gas. Did you? Yeah, and that's the piece that's inside that initiative that is not being accounted for. So let's be real. The time is now. In my lifetime growing up in the Salish Sea, I have watched the pinto abalone disappear. I have watched the starfish waste away. I have watched the last of our orcas dwindle to a point where we are unsure whether we can bring them back from the brink of extinction. It is happening now whether we want to acknowledge it or not. And the fact that we are creating options for our total economy to be able to help pay for us to shift away from harmful and polluting sources of energy is absolutely the direction we need to go in. And guess what? When you have that partnership between a government that believes in the science, businesses that believe that they want to evolve and move in that new direction, and a community that demands that change, we are going to get there whether or not we are currently on track. Because at least, by God, we're doing something, right?
You caught the timers off guard there. Yeah.
I like to get in under 2 minutes if at all possible, so.
Okay, well, good luck with this one. I'm sorry, I shouldn't do that.
That's all right. It's all right.
Washington State's Constitution requires a balanced budget over a 4-year period. For the next 2-year budget, $1 billion shortfall is predicted, and for the following 2-year budget, approximately $3 billion. Yeah. What strategies would you champion to reduce expenses and/or increase revenues?
We need to be taxing wealth, not work. We have a lot of people in Washington state that are making billions of dollars. The difference between $1 million and $1 billion is a lot. I would venture to say Eddie here has maybe been alive for 1 billion seconds now, if he's around 32. You hit $1 million pretty early in the game. We're talking about people that couldn't possibly spend this wealth if them and all of their heirs till the end of time could spend it out. We have things like the excess compensation tax, which is kind of like the head tax that they have in Seattle. We need to make improvements to our estate tax. We need to make improvements to our real estate excise tax. We need to make sure that small businesses are getting the benefit of a B&O tax that doesn't leave them impoverished at the end of the day, and the biggest companies in Washington state are paying their fair share. This is why the capital gains is such a progressive tax source. Roughly 3,000 people in Washington state pay this tax out of about 8 million people in the state. That to me says it is inherently more progressive than what we have on the books right now. This is filling a hole in the upstream needs we have in education to make sure our communities and our economies are going to thrive into the future. Because as soon as we start undercutting the programs that make sure our society can be held together, you might as well give it up. We have to make sure, especially in times of struggle, that we are taking care of one another and making sure that our tax code is being reformed so that the wealthiest among us are paying their fair share is absolutely the first step to achieving that.
I think you answered part of this question. What is your position on eliminating the capital gains tax?
No.
Okay.
And just to be clear, again, 3,000 people, I have talked to so many folks, and we have an actual map of where the people are that pay capital gains. The people who are the most upset about it are people that don't even have somebody within 100 square miles that pays this tax. I mean, it is on the sale of stocks and bonds, which for most average people, we don't have a stock or a bond, let alone millions of dollars of stocks and bonds to be able to sell and make proceeds from. So let's be realistic about what this tax applies to and how much of a benefit we are seeing in our education system in early childhood. Most of our schools are crying to us right now because they are chronically underfunded, and particularly in the 40th district where our schools got really screwed by the 2019 levy reformulation. Our teachers are underpaid, our paraeducators are underpaid. We don't have enough school counselors or nurses. These are very real impacts, and that doesn't even begin to touch on the special education deficit that we have in our schools. And really lovely to have things like making sure every kid just has school lunch. Why are there cash registers in school cafeterias? It's unacceptable that kids have to go through the financial crucible and the embarrassment of going into the school line and then going hungry because they don't have $2 in their account. These are the things that we're able to uplift with a tax like capital gains, and I think it's exactly appropriate that we're asking it from the people who can absolutely afford to pay it.
Okay. One last question, because we are running out of time. Let's talk about crime.
I'll be so fast.
Okay, I'll speed read the question. Okay. Crimes against property, persons, and violent crime went down in 23 versus 22. However, crimes against society, such as animal cruelty and drug violations, increased by 22.4%. What specific changes would you make to address this increase?
Well, I will just start by saying you don't incarcerate people out of substance abuse. While incarceration may be a tool that law enforcement can use to help people who are endangering themselves when they are in that crisis mode and are maybe in danger of an overdose, it is not a long-term solution that will suffice for the issues we're having with drug abuse in our communities. I liken the situation we're having with fentanyl right now a lot to the crack epidemic in the 80s, except for we have a lot more visibility because we have so much more homelessness that is happening as a result of ripple effects from the pandemic, shrinking workforce, a lot of folks aging and kids aren't stepping in to take jobs. I mean, there's a perfect storm here that is creating this. But I tell you what, I have been all over the world. I've been on 5 continents in the last 3 years. You do not see homelessness in other countries like we do here. Where is that failure happening in our society? And it is so much further upstream than the person who is overdosing in the street right now. It's family cohesion, it's job security, it's housing security, it's education. These are the investments that we are trying to make upstream to prevent this from happening in the first place. And in the meantime, we're gonna have to make sure that we have the partnership of our local law enforcement and particularly our first responders, where we're starting to do things like embed social workers into our force. We have a community-driven firefighter program in Anacortes where Instead of waiting for people to call 911, he's going out and checking on people and seeing how they're doing. These are the kind of forward-thinking policies that make sure we're taking care of people before they slip through the cracks, and that's how we're going to get there. Is we have to make sure that we're doing the investments that are for the upstream benefit of everyone in our society and the immediate and acute care. And that's why the 23-hour response center, the Lummi and Digwali Wellness Centers, the North Star campus, those are all going to come together to help us work on this issue together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Before everybody goes, Liz and Joe and Eddie, can you stay for a few minutes if people want to chat with you? Okay, and Kamal was very apologetic. He had to get back to work. Thank you all for coming. Don't forget, next month we will talk about initiatives. And in November, our guest is Vaughn Palmer, who's with the Vancouver Sun. He will talk about the presidential election from an international perspective. So thank you all for coming.